Good afternoon, class. We are going to have our lecture number 4 on material testing, and we start with the PowerPoint and talking about the stress strain diagram. Coming back to our stress strain diagram, and after you measure the diameter, you get the A sub naught is going to be pi d square over 4, and then you may also measure the original length, and then you may compute the stress and the strain from these two equations. And then we have many machines in our laboratory, and you have experiences with them already, both your manual operation and computerized operation. Both of them should come with you with the stress strain diagram. This one should be for the mild steel. If you record the result, one of the 20 kilonewton UTM provide very strong result, and the computerized universal testing machine testing the deform bar provide pretty good results. Anyway, you got to follow the Thailand industrial standard for testing the steel. And then when you test it, they are supposed to have two types of the stress strain diagram. The first one, the linear portion of kit is going to be very close to the vertical axis. Then you got to scale that portion of the graph and to make it clearer by putting the ratio of 0.1 to 0.001. That means you zoom it for 100 times. Then the first portion, linear portion of this diagram is going to be very clear. Then there are some important points for you to start to determine. This is going to be your first point. That's going to be proportional limit. Okay, that's going to be proportional limit. Then if you project it, this is going to be sigma sub PL. And related to it, you may project it down, and then you read the below scale. That's going to be 0.0012. That's going to be the proportional strain. Okay. Then when you take this to the end of linear elastic, it will be a bit curved and reach the point over here. That's going to be what's so called the sigma sub y upper. And this is not the real yielding stress. After this one, the curve will drop. Okay, this is due to the rearrangement of the grain of the steel. Then the stresses occur over here will be very close to the proportional limit. We call this sigma sub y, the yielding of the lower limit. This is going to take to be our yielding point of the steel. And if you notice, the computerized universal testing machine will provide you with the curved, the lipped like this one. During this process, what happened? The randomized grain during the manufacture of the steel take the stress of yielding. Then the rearrangement of the grain occur to be in a more orderly. And then after finish that portion, it will be at this point. This is going to be the yielding strength. Typically, the yielding strength going to be pretty large, such as this 1.030. And for the proportional strain, maybe only 0.0012. Then, due to very large deformation at the end of the yielding, and the yielding have the same stress. So we use this sigma sub y as the strength in the design of the steel. Then we have sigma allow equal to yielding stress divided by factor of safety. And this specified in the Thailand Industrial Standard. Then during the linear elastic portion, there is the slope occur over here. Over here, sigma equal to E epsilon. Then the modulus of elasticity going to take the slope of the linear portion. That's going to be the modulus of elasticity and is going to represent the stiffness of the material. Again, this is the second variable for the TAS in order to check the standard and specification of your material. Then coming to the third point, that's going to be the point also specified in the TAS is going to be ultimate stress. Over ultimate stress, it is important that the slope equal to 0 because ultimate is the maximum. The maximum occur when the slope is 0. You determine the point, then you get this to be sigma sub u. During the strain hardening period over here, the necking start to appear, but it's not very clear until it's reached the maximum ultimate. Then during this portion, you will see that portion of the specimen will get to be naked. The area over here will be reduced. And then the material can be resist less forces. And then the curve start to be downward with the negative slope. Okay, that's point reached over here. As the specimen separate into two pieces, and then we will have this one to be sigma sub f, which is going to be fractional stress. The fractional stress will corresponding to the strain over here of fractional strain. Also, the ultimate stress over here will corresponding to the point over here to be ultimate strain. Ultimate strain, fractional strain will determine based on the upper scale. But the proportional strain will determine by the below scale. Now, if you use the Thailand Industrial Standard to specify the steel, you got to follow the TS number 1227. And this is the year is start to now. I think it's already revised, but I forgot the year of the new one. And this one is the product of Siam Cement Group. It's going to specify first chemical composition. This is not involved with us. It's going to involve with metallurgical engineering. And for that's involved with that, it's going to be this one, yielding point, tensile stress, percent elongation, and one more. It's going to be modulus of elasticity. 4 important variables. And all of them must be passes. Okay, no mechanical property getting below. If that occurs, you got to reject the shipment of the steel. Now, theoretically, we can separate the behavior of the steel into 2 types of behavior: elastic behavior and plastic behavior. And Ajahn already give you the definition of them. Okay. And for the elastic behavior, there is the elastic region. And in the elastic region, there is 2 important points. One, proportional limit. And another one gonna be elastic limit. After we reach the elastic limit, that's going to be the end of elastic behavior. Then, as Ajahn mentioned, the steel going to have the yielding, okay, and then you take this one as sigma sub y, and it's going to be the lower yielding. And then during this process, again, the yielding occur, the stress not increase, deformation increase. At the end of this one, you get this one to be yielding strain. And again, yielding strain a lot larger than the strain at this proportional limit. Then we use sigma sub y as the strength of material, and most of the time it's going to be pretty close with the proportional stress. Again, at this point, the grain of the steel now in order, and it's come to strain hardening. The steel have strength to resist the stress again until it reach the maximum ultimate stress. Okay, and then necking occur. The stress actually not decrease, but since we calculate the stress by sigma equal to P over AO, but during the necking, the area is going to be A, and A less than AO. Okay, but you still use AO to divide it. That's also the reason why the curve get the negative slope during the necking. Not only the reduction of the cross section, but the calculation also. Then the necking, as shown over here, you guys have experience to touch it already. Then after its failure, you got to measure two things. One, you measure this one. That's going to be D sub F in order to calculate for A sub F. And also you got to measure the L sub F. Okay, later we will use both L sub F and A sub F to calculate the ductility property of the steel. That's going to be percent elongation and percent area reduction later. Following the given stress strain diagram, Ajahn would like you to practice how to determine the mechanical property of various important points. Okay, and then we will have extra example to practice on it. The word over here show us to explain to you why design code specify the yielding stress as the strength of the steel. Ajahn did mention before, since the end of yielding, deformation is so large already. The function of the structure may be more function. Then they took the yielding to be the strength. Why don't they took the ultimate stress? That's going to be a lot larger than the yielding. That's one going to be the reserve strength of the steel. So if you are consider clearly, actually we only use the property of our steel only in this region compared to the whole region. You may see that's going to be very high safety factor already. If the structure fail, that means the design should be going very wrong, okay, very incorrect. The one that's occur in Lama To Road highway in the area of Bangkok, that's one that is go occur due to the mishap since the engineer didn't consider the foundation of the temporary structure clearly. There are settlement. After the settlement, the temporary structure just collapsed, and then the construction portion of the highway also collapsed. And then there are many lot of lives. That's really solid for the family. Now, there are steel and cast iron during our laboratory number 3. When we test them in tension, the steel fell by necking, and due to the necking, what it means, the steel subjected to the normal stress, and then it caused the slip of the plane of the grain. The slip occur due to the shear stress. That means steel subjected to the normal stress and is fell by shear stress at 45-degree angle. Okay, that's you have evidence by the necking of the steel. However, the cast iron, there are carbon added into the steel to make the cast iron. To make the cast iron has high high surface stiffness to use it, such as for the railway. Then, when the cast iron subjected to the normal stress, it has micro crack between steel and carbon. Then the micro crack will separate very quickly. Then the failure of the cast iron is due to tensile stress. Okay, it's different. And then the section that occur the crack for the cast iron going to be 90 degree with the longitudinal axis. So take note on this, and I think you already like it in your laboratory report, and I didn't see the reject of your report. Supposed to be okay. Okay, I don't know who grading. People also very high. Then we come to two types of material. One is ductile material. Steel is the example of the ductile material. Ductile material has large deformation before its failure. Most of ductile material also show the yielding, and since it have large deformation, this kind of ductile material can absorb large energy, and it is good for structures such as the guardrail for the bridge, and also is used to reinforce the brittle material to make the brittle material more ductile. What is the brittle material? We know about cast iron already, and also the concrete is going to be very good example of the brittle material. This material has no yielding and is going to have very small deformation, and the failure going to be abrupt failure. It's immediate or abrupt failure. Okay, the cast iron, the concrete, in tension, not compression, in tension. And then I should say in tension, we measure the ductility by compute for the percent elongation. Before the test, you measure for the L sub O. After the test, you measure for L sub F. Then L sub F minus L sub O over L sub O going to be percent elongation. Most of the metal has the elongation larger than 20%. And I should say the value of percent elongation must be positive. Then you also measure this one for the A sub O. Later, you measure the crack, and then you compute for the A sub F. The A sub F going to be smaller than A sub O, and this one going to take the negative moment, negative value. So percent reduction of area has minus sign. Then there is some alloy such as aluminum alloy and also high strength steel. These are ductile material but has no yielding point clearly. Then you got to use 0.2% offset, and 0.2% is 0.2 divided by 100. That could be 0.002. You take it at 0.002, draw the line parallel to the graph, then you mark it. You will get this point to be the yielding of this aluminum alloy. And then how to explain the behavior of the material such as cast iron in tension. you know about it, is have low tensile strength since it have micro crack. Then micro crack open due to the tension. The failure gonna occur immediately. The material behave brittle. But in compression, this material is not brittle. Since in compression, the micro crack close each other. Not only the micro crack close to each other due to the Poisson effect, the area of the specimen will be increased due to compression cause material to back out. That's going to be the A will be larger than the original A. Then the cast iron will take very large compression. The concrete also have the same reasoning to explain the concrete behavior in tension, which is very brittle. However, the concrete, when subjected to the compression, is going to have very large strength. That's going to be about 15 plus times larger. So the concrete used typically in taking the compression in column. But Ajahn, how come we also put the steel in the column? Because if you only use the concrete in the column, the failure of the column going to be brittle. And that's going to be very dangerous. When one column fail, it's going to cause domino effect. The also floor, upper floor going to fail down and cause the whole building collapse. That's why we got to put the steel in the reinforced concrete column. And ACI said it should be at least 1% of the steel in the column. This is very important specification for the design of the reinforced concrete column. Steel must be larger than 1%. And also it's not over than 8%. Since it's over than 8%, the column gonna fail brittle. Very strength. Anyway, that's going to be the reason behind the failure of the brittle material, both in tension and in compression. The behavior drastically different. And then there are various types of stress strain diagram. And I would like you guys to recognize it and answer something. Which material gonna be stiffest material? Which material should have highest strength? Those kind of things. Yeah, I already mentioned about that, so I'm going to pass it. Now, we move to the Hooke's law. Hooke's law is very important because Hooke's law follow our civil engineering assumption of the behavior of the material. That's going to be linear, elastic, and small deformation. During the linear elastic, that's going to be the first portion of the stress strain diagram. For the steel, no matter you put the carbon into the steel, since the percent carbon is not that high, it may be as much as 1%, it won't affect the stiffness or modulus of elasticity of the steel. Then we may say for stress is linearly proportional to the strain up to the proportional limit. The stress is linear proportional to the strain by the E, by the modulus of elasticity or Young modulus. And again, that's going to be the slope and represent the stiffness of the material. High value of E. Material stiffer than the material having lowering value of E, such as E sub ST is 200 gigapascal. This one is stiffer than the E of aluminum of 70 gigapascal, for example. And then coming to another important property, strain hardening. During the linear elastic behavior when you load the structure and then you release it. The behavior of the material will only be in elastic region, and that's going to behave elastically. Then if you load kit passing this point A to the plastic region over here, then you release the force. The behavior of the material will be returned to the behavior this way, the same way as the linear elastic portion. Then what happened? The steel or the material will have two type of the strain. That's going to be elastic recovery strain and permanent set. And we will, for extra example, to compute both of them. But the property of the material now shift the axis. And then due to this one, you can see the yielding from this point now changing into the larger one. So due to the strain hardening, we have larger elastic region and also higher yielding stress. Okay, and also higher modulus of resilience, which is the area of this linear elastic behavior, the new triangle larger than the O1. So modulus of resilience going to be larger. And what's going to be the disadvantage? The division is the material must be more brittle or less ductility. Previously, we should have this red value, but after strain hardening, the deformation reduced to only the yellow one. And then strain energy. Again, strain energy is mean the energy that can be absorbed by the material and is in the form of strain energy density. And that's going to represent the area for linear elastic. This is going to be the modulus of resilience. As Ajahn mentioned, it's going to be the area during the behavior of the material is linear elastic. So U sub R going to be 1/2 of proportional stress times proportional strain. And then sigma equal to epsilon. Epsilon equal to sigma over E. Then if you put epsilon over here, you may compute modulus of resilience by this equation. And that show ability of the material that can absorb energy without permanent deformation or during linear elastic behavior. And for the whole area, we cannot compute it easily. We got to approximate it based upon this equation. Okay, just take this one times this one, and the vertical one going to be the average of this sigma sub y, and this is going to be sigma sub u. This is going to be the portion in parentheses. That's going to be over here. Now, we move to another thing. We have example. And for the example in the PowerPoint, I would like you guys to do your self-study using your 8 hours self-study hour. And since also you have read this one already, since you take mechanics of material with me on the previous trimester. So all of thing in the PowerPoint, I will left you for the review. Okay. And that's going to be the main portion of this one. And we will have extra example. I will show you on this example. Let me move to one more example in the PowerPoint. Again, Ajahn already teach you over here, you may go back to the video clips of the previous trimester. This is going to be the column of a building. Okay, and there are loading on the column, and then you can check the deformation of the column. That's going to be the same one as I'm going to show you for the extra example. So let me finish the first portion of the lecture here, and we will work together for the extra example. Any question? Let us start on this extra example. In our examination, the exam will separate into two portions. One going to be multiple choice. Another one going to be written examination. And again, the problem going to be the same as you have before. It's not that tough, but Ajahn supposed to cover thing for you for special example here. I should mention about one thing. There are two types of two force member. One gonna be in compression. This one will shorten or have contraction. This one will subjected to the tension. And then under the force, this one will have elongation. That's the basic of engineering sense. Okay. Now, for the stress strain diagram, theoretically, you may have this kind of diagram, but most of the experiment result is may have this one. Okay, and also it have the third type. The third type Ajahn already mentioned in the PowerPoint. That have a clear yielding. Okay, this is have unclear yielding. This is quite theoretical stress strain diagram of a material, and then come to the problem. We start with this one. The problem said the material is metallurgical alloy. Okay, didn't specify any type of kit, just said it is alloy, and then it has the stress strain diagram as shown over here, and then the yielding stress and the proportional limit stress, they are at the same point. Okay, then they ask us to determine proportional limit. This is the point of what? Of over here. Okay, the point, the last point of linear elastic behavior. And then following this one, you may trying to determine the point. You may putting your vertical portion of the projector ruler, and then you draw the line close to here. Okay. Then when you get this one, this is supposed to be our sigma sub PL. And then let Ajahn zoom it in a bit. And if you take a close look of it, you may see this is 10 millimeter. 10 millimeter for 100 megapascal. So you may have this one 100 megapascal. That's equivalent to 10 millimeter. Then measure over here. You may get 1.5. You may get 2.0. Okay. But it should not be only 1 or 3 for sure. Let me take this one for 2 millimeter. So the spacing over here gonna be 100 times 2 divided by 10. That's gonna be 20 megapascal. Then our sigma sub PL will be equal to 300, and then minus this spacing minus 20. This gonna be 280 megapascal. Put it 280 over here. Then come to the ultimate stress. What's going to be the importance of ultimate stress? That is the point of zero slope. Then you got to use the upper scale graph and trying to determine the point of zero slope that's going to be in the horizontal line. Then you just put this one and put it over here and specify the point over here to be the point of zero slope. Then you get the point over here and measure the distance over here. If you get this one 5 millimeter, 5 millimeter, that's going to be 100 times 5 over 10. That's going to be 50 megapascal. Then this is going to be your sigma sub u equal to 500 plus 50. That's going to be 550 megapascal. You got to show me how you get the result. Okay, get the result. Then they ask us to determine the sigma sub f. Okay, see the graph over here. You will see the point over here is above 400. You cannot answer me 400. If you answer me 400, you could be wrong. Okay, you got to do another. Show me how to get the value. Again, you got to draw the line over here and see it's going to be a bit, okay, larger than 400. You may say this is going to be your sigma sub f and it should be 400 plus. If you measure this one, is just a bit above. It's maybe only 0.5. So it's going to be 405 megapascal. The answer must come with the procedure of analysis. Okay. Then for the E, we have sigma equal to E epsilon. So E gonna be delta stress divided by delta strain. And since we have this behavior in linear elastic up until this point, so the stress gonna be sigma sub PL, and that's gonna be 280 megapascal. And if you project down here, you will get the strain of 0.001. So it's divided by 0.001. So you get this one to be 280 gigapascal. Okay. And then, furthermore, the problem asks you to determine modulus of resilience. That's going to be U sub R. U sub R is what? Equal to 1 over 2 sigma sub PL, strain sub PL. And then you have the stress sub PL 280, 10 power 6 Newton per square meter. And the strain in millimeter by millimeter, just change it 0.001 meter by meter. Then follow this one. For this one, you will have to times this one by 0.001 and divided by 2. It's going to be 0.1410 power 6. It's going to be 0.1410 power 6. And what's going to be the unit? Newton meter per this one and this one cubic meter. And you know, work is going to be force times distance. This is force. This is distance. The unit of work is the form of joule, Joule. Okay, and then you have this one. Since unit is in megajoule, it's going to be 0.14 megajoule per cubic meter. That's going to be the answer for the first portion of our extra example. Any question? No question. Let me move next. Okay, after you get this one, Sometimes อาจารย์ also going to use those mechanical property to analyze axially compressive member ABC. Okay, and then due to this one, you may put the color into it, and this column is going to be bigger for the AB portion and smaller for the BC portion. And then follow the detail over here. We should take L sub AB and the cross-sectional area. So you may put it over here and then take the length of this one L sub AB of 1,500 millimeter. For the A sub AB, take a note over here. It's gonna be 100 and then square millimeter. Then there is the segment BC have the length and have the cross-sectional area. You may draw it again for the BC and L sub BC gonna be 1,000 millimeter and A sub BC is gonna be 50 square millimeter. Okay, now come to the load. Okay, there are P1 that's gonna be equal to 20 kilonewton and the P2 is gonna be 10 kilonewton. Okay, that's going to be the detail show over here. You may put it into the model. Then they ask us to determine axial stress for the column both AB and also for the BC. Now BC gonna be over here and again going to be put it over here, and for the member AB you should put it on this space. Okay, and then we also know that sigma sub AB is going to be F sub AB divided by A sub AB. We don't know the F sub AB. We will determine it. Also, sigma sub BC gonna be internal force F sub BC divided by A sub BC. Then we got to cut, okay, our column and draw the free body diagram. And follow this one, you got to have two cut. This gonna be another cut. Okay, and then this is the point where the column connect to the segment BC. Now follow what we have here. 10 kilonewton due to the column subjected to the axial force. It said axial compression. Then this 10 kilonewton will be resisted by F sub BC over here. And for this free body diagram, the line of the load gonna pass the centroid of the section. This is 10 kilonewton. This is 20 kilonewton. Following the free body diagram of the column segment AB and BC. Okay, you first draw free body diagram and then we determine F sub AB and F sub BC internal axial force. Then you may take the axis of x and y, and then อาจารย์ชุด said if you consider summation of x sub x equal to 0, first equation, no horizontal force, you have this one automatically correct. And if you take summation of the moment at the centroid of the section, okay, you will have all the forces passing to the centroid of the column. So this equation equal to 0 automatically. Then if you use the summation of f sub y equal to 0 upward to be positive, this one will be 10 kilonewton. And then for this one, if you use summation of f sub y equal to 0 upward positive, f sub a b, f sub a b will equal to 10 plus 20, and then this one gonna be 30 kilonewton. So basis upon this one, we come to our axial stress. We have axial stress for this one, F sub AB. Take this one up. This is 30,000 Newton. The area here divided by 100 square millimeter. And you know, Newton per square millimeter gonna be megapascal, right? That's going to be equal to 300 megapascal. And then this one is larger than megapascal is larger than sigma sub y, which is going to be 280. So the behavior of this portion is going to be in the plastic region. Okay. And for the BC, you may take F sub BC over here. That's gonna be 10,000 Newton. Cross-sectional area is 50 square millimeter divided by 50 square millimeter. You got the result of this one to be cut 1,000 divided by 5, 200 megapascal. And this is less than sigma sub y. And then this one is in linear elastic behavior because the stress less than the yielding stress. And now, how to compute axial strain? For this linear elastic, the axial strain may be determined from the Hooke's law. Okay. Then for this one, strain of the BC is going to be equal to sigma sub BC divided by E. So you have this one 200 megapascal divided by what's going to be modulus of elasticity? This one. Okay, you got to have this one 280 10 power 3. And then that's going to be megapascal by megapascal. Cut. Then you're supposed to have the strain here to be 0.714 and 10 minus 3. And this is going to be contraction. It's going to be contraction, shortening. Okay. Now, for the AB, when it is in plastic region, you cannot use Hooke's law. You got to determine strain sub AB from the graph. Okay. We got to take this one from stress strain diagram. And then when you take it from stress strain diagram, we come to our graph. Where is 300 megapascal? 300 megapascal is over here. And the projection horizontally cut it over here. Okay, cut it over here. And then you may do the projection from here down over here. And for this point, you got to check. This is what? This is total. Let's zoom it. That is total of 8 millimeter. 8 millimeter. And this is halfway. Okay. That's gonna be like this one 4 millimeter. This one 4 millimeter. Since this is halfway, so strain sub AB will be this one plus this one divided by 2. It's gonna be 0.002 plus 0.0025 divided by 2. You're going to get this one to be 0.00225 millimeter by millimeter. Or you may put it over here. 1, 2, 3. Gonna be 2.25 and then 10 minus 3 millimeter per millimeter. Okay. Now, this also contraction. We move to another one of problem C, total contraction. Okay, we will determine delta total. And that's delta total gonna be delta AB. And then plus delta BC. And then we have strain equal to deformation over length. So deformation gonna be strain times length. So up until over here, delta total is gonna be equal to, for this one strain AB L sub AB. Another one for this one is gonna be plus strain BC L sub BC. Okay, and then just put everything together. This is gonna be 2.25 and 10 minus 3. L sub AB is over here. It's gonna be 1.5 and 10 power 3 millimeter. And then we have this strain 0.714 10 minus 3. The length over here is 1 times 10 power 3 millimeter. You put everything together. You should get the first one to be 3.375 millimeter, and plus this one cut this one 0.714 millimeter. So the total of this one, when you combine it, it's gonna be 4.089 millimeter, or you may say it's gonna be 4.09 millimeter. Okay, it's okay to say it's gonna be 4.09. Then what going to be the L palm? Okay, L palm gonna be equal to L L, and then this one minus delta total. What's gonna be L? 1,000 and 1,500. You have 1,000 plus. How come it's fixed? Okay, it's moved. And then this is 1,500 500. Then contraction, shortening, minus, you got to minus, okay, minus 4.09. And then you should get the new length to be what? 2,400 what? 90 what? 95.91 millimeter. Okay. And this is the length when the column subjected to the compression. Okay. And then next, they ask us for the total length now, total length of the column after releasing the applied load. Okay. When you release the applied load, this linear elastic will return to its original length of 1,000 millimeter. Only this portion will follow the strain hardening behavior. The return graph will follow this one, and it's gonna be in parallel to the first portion. And then mark over here, we will have this portion to represent recovery strain. Okay, this one will reference strain recovery. And you're gonna have the portion over here. This one will be the permanent set. So this one will be strain permanent. And Ajahn should say following from here and then go all the way to here. It's gonna be strain sub AB. Okay, so the pink is going to be the green plus the orange. Okay, but we got to start to determine the green first. In order to determine recovery strain, the portion over here is in Hooke's law, in linear portion. So sigma equal to epsilon. Then strain recovery gonna be strain that's over here. That's gonna be strain sub A B. I should say that's gonna be strain sub A B divided by E. Okay, divided by E. Then you will have this one equal to the strain sub AB is 300 megapascal, is 300 megapascal divided by modulus of elasticity over here 280 10 power 3 megapascal. Okay, after you divide it, you will get strain recovery to be 1.0710 minus 3 millimeter by millimeter. Okay, now we come over here, strain permanent. Okay, we move it back, the orange. Now we are looking for the orange term. We have strain permanent, and that's gonna be equal to this one, the pink, strain sub A B minus the green, minus strain recovery. Then this is 2.25 and 10 minus 3. Strain recovery over here is going to be 1.07 and 10 minus 3. Then you have the orange equal to the pink minus the green. You got the result. Stain permanent is gonna be equal to 1.18 and 10 minus 3 millimeter by millimeter. Okay. Now coming back to the equation over here, the permanent deformation gonna be stain permanent and then time the length of the AB, right? Then it's gonna be equal to 1.1810 minus 3. Length of AB is gonna be 1.510 power 3 millimeter. Cut. It's gonna be 1.18 times 1.5. You get this one equal to 1.77 millimeter, and it is shortening or contraction. Then we have L palm equal to L minus delta permanent. Okay, that's gonna be 1,000 2,500 minus 1.77, and that's gonna be 2,400 98.23. Okay, 98.23 millimeter. 2,498.23. Okay, we finish this one, and that means we take about only 15 minutes, okay, to finish it. And then let me move to the next one. On the next one, the problem also separate into two portions as before. The first portion asks you to determine the mechanical property. And since the graph is similar to the previous one, Ajahn will let you to do it by yourself. Okay. And then move to another one. The problem is going to be about the lot A, B, C. And again, this one different from the previous one. The lot A, B, C now is in tension. Okay. And now the lot gonna be in elongation. And now go to the same way as before. Read the problem carefully. The section AB have the length now of 1,200 and has the same cross-sectional area. So the first portion, if you put it over here, L sub A B 1,200 millimeter. A sub AB over here, you have 100 square millimeter. Put it A sub AB equal to 100 square millimeter. And you can note that the problem is not different from the previous one. Okay, but just change something. The method going to be the same, but change from shortening into elongation. And for this one, L sub BC going to change the same, not the same, 1,000 the same, 1,000 millimeter. And A sub BC going to be 50 square millimeter. We got to draw the free body diagram of the segment of the this one should call Tylon. Okay, intention is should call Tylon. Okay, previously we called it column. Now we draw the free body diagram of this one. Okay, if you didn't do good from mechanics of material, now you got to do it
Very good, believe me. The first portion subjected to the force P2. Okay. Over here, P2 is what? P2 is 10 kilonewton. This is 10 kilonewton. P1 going to be 25 kilonewton. So the axial force gonna pass to the centroid. This is 10 kilonewton. And again, this is gonna be F sub BC. Then for the other portion, this is put it in red. And then there is the BC. Okay, for here. And follow what we have discussed before, all the force mass passing to the centroid of the member. And again, this is going to be 10 kilonewton. And this is going to be 25 kilonewton. And then we have this one for F sub A B. Okay. Do the same thing. Summation of F sub X equal to 0 correctly. And summation of the moment about any centroid of the section, it's gonna be equal to 0. Then summation of F sub Y equal to 0. This is 10 kilonewton. And summation of F sub Y equal to 0. This is 10 plus 25 is gonna be 35 kilonewton. Only mathematics gonna be changed. The way we do the computation gonna be the same. Okay. Now, let me move you to the next one. We again have the portion A, B, and B, C. A, B, A, B. Okay. And then also for the B, C. For the, again, normal stress, sigma sub A, B. Sigma sub A, B equal to F sub A, B, 35,000 Newton divided by 100 square millimeter. You will get sigma sub AB to be 350 megapascal. And then following the data given here, E is 225 gigapascal. Yielding stress equal to proportional stress of 250. And we found that this is larger than sigma sub Y specified over here. So in conclusion, this is going to be in plastic behavior. Do the same thing for sigma sub BC. That's gonna be 10,000 Newton divided by the area, 50 square millimeter. We got cut. 1,000 divided by 5, we get 200 megapascal. This one less than sigma sub Y. Therefore, this is going to be in the linear elastic behavior. Just put it over here. Now, again, for the strain, we got to determine strain sub AB. But this one, you got to go down over here. Okay, you got to go down over here. We have stress strain diagram of this problem 2.2 over here, not on the top. Then the strain going to determine based on this one from the stress strain diagram, where is 350, 200, 250, 300. This is going to be our 3 50, and this is going to be stress of the AB. Okay, you got to follow what we have over here, and if you have some guide, follow the guide. Believe me, อาจารย์ trying to help you. You will get this point. Okay, and since you get this point, you may draw the line from here down to here. You get to this point. Then you will have this one to be strain sub A B, and you take a look at it. Strain sub AB gonna be 510 minus 3 millimeter by millimeter. I would like you guys to show how to get the value. Okay, how to get it. Then for the strain sub BC, okay, the sigma equal to E epsilon. Epsilon gonna be stress sub BC divided by E. So you have this one for 200 megapascal. It's gonna divide by the given value over here of 225 10 power 3 megapascal. Then you get the strain of this one 0.8889 minus 3 millimeter by millimeter, and they are elongation strain. Now they ask us again to determine total elongation. Let me put it in black. Delta total, that's again gonna be delta sub AB plus delta sub BC, and strain equal to delta over L. So for this one, you will have strain times L. That's gonna be strain sub AB L sub AB plus strain sub BC L sub BC. You have this one equal to, okay, 5 10 minus 3. L sub AB is gonna be 1.2 10 power 3 millimeter. Cut, and then plus 0.889 10 minus 3, 1000 millimeter. 1 times 10 power 3 millimeter. Cut. So you get this one 0.889 millimeter. And for the first one, 5 times 1.2 is gonna be 6.0 then millimeter. Okay, so the total of this one is gonna be 6.889 millimeter, or you may say it's gonna be 6.89 millimeter. It's okay. Okay, and for the last one, again, total length of the lot A, B, C. We come back to our graph and then do the same way. The strain hardening, this one will return like over here. Now, the same as before. We have this one for the strain AB. We have this one for recovery strain, and we have this one for strain permanent. Okay, then this is strain permanent, and this is going to be strain recovery. We will have strain permanent. We will have strain permanent equal to the pink strain sub AB and minus strain recovery. And as previously we know, this is going to be equal to strain sub AB 5, 10 minus 3, and then minus, and we are looking for the strain recovery, and strain recovery gonna be stress, this one will be stress sub AB over here. That's going to be stress sub AB and divided by E. So we will put it again. That's going to be equal to 5, 10 minus 3 minus sigma sub AB over here 350 megapascal, and then divided by the E over here divided by 225 to 510 power 3 megapascal. Okay, and you should get this one to be 1.56 10 minus 3. Then the result of this one strain permanent 5 minus the 3.44 10 minus 3 millimeter per millimeter. Now do the same. We have what? Deformation equal to strain times length. So following what we have here, our permanent deformation is going to be strain permanent, and this one for AB. So this one 3.4410 minus 3. L sub AB again is 1,200. 1.210 power 3 millimeter. Cut. You should get this one to be 4.13 millimeter, and L sub palm will be 1,000 plus 1,200 plus 4.13 2,200 and 4.13 millimeter 2,204.13, and that should cover our extra example that อาจารย์ provide you. Let อาจารย์ move it a bit to the PowerPoint. Let me take you to this one of important what's so called bridge construction material. It's going to be the bearing pad. Okay, this bearing pad made by using the composite material. If Angelo trying to develop one that's better than in the fact in the industry, you should be very rich. The bridge structure, the top of the bridge called bridge superstructure. This is the bridge superstructure, and then there is the bridge substructure. Okay, this is going to be the cross beam, and this is going to be the pier. We put the superstructure on the substructure, and then since they made by the concrete, and this one also made by the concrete, so we got to put the bearing pad, okay, between them in order to transfer the load properly and also absorb the impact load. When the vehicle passing the bridge, there are impact. Okay, this one is very important. Now, what we going to do? The bridge not only subjected to the vertical force, very large vertical force, but the pad also must resisting
what's so called the braking force from the vehicle. The brake force going to occur horizontally in any direction. Then the bearing pad must be subjected to both vertical load and also by the horizontal shear force. Then that's gonna follow ASTO M251. Okay, now we also have the laboratory number 5 in that's number 5, right? The torsion is going to be torsion test of the steel. This is supposed to be steel and also the cast iron. Okay, for the torsional testing of our specimen, the result gonna be a bit different from the thin wall tube because for the thin wall tube, the stress distribution gonna occur only at the material, only at the thickness. But for our solid section, the stress will all the section. This one gonna be closer to the theoretical, but our testing machine also provide good enough result. Then you got to compute tau equal to PR over J. Okay, that's going to be the shear stress occur in our specimen. And also, you also determine the angle of twist. Okay, and then the angle of twist can be used to determine shear strength. Okay, based on what we have from the previous one, this is going to be angle of twist, and this is going to be our shear strength. The length over here gonna be L. So for a given distance over here, okay, we will compute it by shear strength times L and also equal to phi over here times radius R. Then following this one, we can measure phi. Then we can compute shear strength equal to phi times radius divided by the L. Then we may draw the diagram called shear stress, shear strength diagram. And I should say shear stress is in megapascal. Shear strength gonna be in the unit of radian. Then follow what we have over here. This is an example of shear stress, shear strength. There are some important points to be noted for this one. In our civil engineering application, we have such as to produce the boring log of soil. We got to do the soil to check the layer of soil. Of the layer of soil, we will use this information to design the pie. Ask P. Angelo. Okay. And also, we have boring pie in Bangkok. We got to construct the pie for high-rise building. You got to have like 50-meter pies. So you got to have the shaft to bore to drill the soil, and then that shaft also in the torsion. There are many civil engineering construction machine subjected to torsion. Okay, and then to design it, we got to use this one. And most of the time, tau yielding assumed to be equal to proportional limit shear stress. And then the slope over here got to be G. Actually, G can compute from the modulus of elasticity time divided by 2 time 1 minus Poisson ratio, and that is going to be indirect computation. You may determine this one directly because during the portion of this graph we have tau equal to g gamma, then shear modulus of elasticity gonna be delta tau divided by delta gamma. We call this one shear modulus of elasticity, and then you use this kind of information for lab number 5. For the failure of the cast iron and steel in torsion, we have mentioned about the failure of these two material in tension already. And in tension, this one have the necking, okay? The steel subjected to normal stress and then is fell by shear stress in tension. For the cast iron in tension, is fell by separation. Cast iron subjected to normal stress and fell by normal stress. How about the steel subjected to the torsion? In the torsion, the steel subjected to tau, and due to the failure, okay, it's fell by cut perpendicular to the longitudinal axis. This failure is due to the torsional shear stress. This one fell by tau. Okay, compare the above discussion with this discussion. Steel always fail based on tau. Okay, still no matter its intention or its torsion, it's fail by shear stress. Now come to the brittle cast iron. The cast iron now subjected to the tau, but failure occur due to the tensile stress. Based upon this discussion, you can see cast iron always fail by normal stress. And Angelo, that's why chapter 5 in Advanced Mechanics of Material, the brittle material must be used normal stress failure criteria, or sometimes they use normal strain failure criteria, because the failure of this brittle material only due to the normal stress. Okay, and then steel, aluminum, they are ductile material. They sometimes have the necking. The failure of them is due to the tau, and that's why ductile material must use the maximum shearing stress failure criteria, or so maximum octahedral shearing stress failure criteria to predict it, to predict their behavior. I would link this one to Mr. Angelo because he took Advanced Mechanics of Material and he studied the failure criteria, and the result from material testing can link into what you have learned. Now, for the Poisson ratio, อาจารย์ already have the lecture over them. For the rubber, Poisson ratio will be 0.4. For the steel, Poisson ratio about 0.3. For the rock and the concrete, Poisson ratio should be 0.1. And there are some example over here, and I would like you to do your self study for this example. And then there are pre-stressed concrete. After you finish this course, you take RC1, then you take RC2, and then the option you got to take what's so-called pre-stasis concrete, okay, concrete like this one, and then design. In this one, we got to do the stress by pulling the steel, okay, and then cast the concrete, and then you cut it. The stress in the tendon will push into your concrete. Then your concrete gonna subjected to the lever's direction. When you apply the force, that kind of lever's curve like this one will increase the strength of the pre-stasis concrete. Model structure always built by the pre-stasis concrete. And then there are some important points in the design of the pre-stasis concrete. On the pre-stasis concrete, the concrete must be high strength or higher strength than the reinforced concrete. The concrete have creep behavior. If the concrete have low strength, the concrete will have a lot of air void. Okay, in the air void, there are water. Then when the concrete subjected to very large continuous force, the water in the air void will move, and then they cause permanent deformation. Those permanent deformation may cause may cause the structure that to be malfunction, okay, from the design. Large deformation, such as for this one, okay. And then how to prevent it? You got to prevent it by putting more reinforcement to prevent the creep. Then there is another thing, relaxation. Relaxation occur in the material such as high strength steel when it's subjected to very high stress. The metal grain under the high tensile stress will slide and cause deformation, and that deformation may be involved with the malfunction of the structure. Then there is fatigue. The last lab in our material testing, we test fatigue for aluminum. When ductile material such as aluminum subjected to the repeat stresses, the stress should be larger than the yielding stress. The ductile material, when subjected to this one, it may fail abruptly as the brittle material. The wing of the airplane, also the turbine of the wind tower generator, also the wheel of the race car, subjected to repeated load. So you got to consider it. Also in our crane may have some kind of welding. Okay, welding also prone to the fatigue, because welding got to be very what's so-called complex process. Sometimes they have void due to the welding. When that's one subjected to the repeated stress, the welding also fail. In our lab, we do the fatigue test based on this machine, and then we draw the SN diagram. The SN diagram tells us if the stress is large, the material will resist small number of the repeated load. If the stress is small, the material can resist more cycle of loading. And if the stress lower than one given value, the material can resist infinite number of repeated load. That's point called endurance limit. Okay, and typically we have endurance limit equal to sigma sub u divided by 2. So for our structural steel, this is going to be 200 megapascal. Then if you compare it with the sigma allowable, which is the yielding divided by factor of safety, that's going to be 125 megapascal. So most of the time, our civil engineering steel structure won't fail in fatigue. Most of the time, because the stress that we use during the working condition is smaller than endurance limit of 400 megapascal. So in our civil engineering, what important is going to be involved with the welding point. Okay, and that's going to be the main issue for this one. Whenever the stress less than endurance limit, our structural steel can take infinite number of repeated cycle. Then, since large steel structure such as with require welding, we got to do the inspection. And this is a new field of civil engineering, structural health inspection. I should say structural health, health inspection. And we may have a new professor who graduated from AIT and University of Tokyo working on this structural health inspection, Angelo. This will be very important for large structure such as the elevated highway structure. And then why the fatigue occur? Fatigue occur due to a small crack. Okay, when the crack subjected to the repeated load, such as you have the wound. Okay, the wound, small wound, when you bend it, it's going to be hurt. Okay, when the micro crack subjected to repeated load, that micro crack will grow up, and it will go up to one point. The ductile material fell by brittle behavior. Brittle behavior. This is kind of high-end engineering problem. Then that is the end of chapter 4, and you are ready to get the A4 paper. So take the A4 paper from P. Angelo and then write it on the page. That's P. Boom. Take the signature. Only one page, not 2 pages. Only 1 page allowed in the examination room. Okay. So any question for today? No question. We won't have class next Thursday, not next Tuesday, because we're going to have the commencement day. However, on this coming Monday, I move theory of structure from 1 p.m. to noon in order me to take the picture with my graduate. They have set it at 2:30 p.m. or 14:30. That's why I got to finish it before 14 o'clock. Okay.